Kicking off the new year with a new episode of Quiet Please. I've got Dave Markle on the podcast today, caddy for Nick Taylor, fresh off their win at the Sony Open a couple weeks ago. Nick's having a monster last 3 or 4 years with Dave on the bag. Got a lot of great stories in there about how it came to be, how they're a good team together, and some other awesome stuff in there. Enjoy. All right, happy to be joined today by Dave Markle, caddy for Nick Taylor, fresh off their win at the Sony Open in Hawaii 2 weeks ago, up to 26th in the world rankings now, nearly Nick's best ever. Dave, welcome to Quiet Please.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. I love following what you and Nick are up to. I want to jump right into it, and take you back there a couple weeks. I don't think it's too much to ask you to reminisce a little bit about that chip in Hawaii to post 16 under. It was Nick's last hole, and I think he's at 14 under and, maybe scratching and clawing to have a chance. And it ended up being good enough for a playoff. I guess just talk us through that moment and the feeling of Nick just giving you guys a chance to continue on.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, really, as anybody who's kind of watching from home or watching from there can understand. We didn't know exactly what was going on behind us there. We played with Nico that day, and we knew Nico was at 16. Hit it deep on 18 there. Thought he hit a good shot in. Couldn't really tell if it kind of held on to the back of the green. It was a good 4-iron for him. I think he wanted to hit a little bit of a cut, but at the time the wind was kind of there and then laid down. So he knew he kind of had to step on it a little bit. Hit a good one, ran through the back, and we got relief there up against the grandstand, and it rolled, and he was able to place it, and had a great lie. And I think as everyone's coming to see, in those situations, Nick, he's got the focus and the kind of the moxie to get it done. And it was business as usual. He's, he chips a lot with the 58 around the green, but he can chip with, anything. Obviously all these guys can. And it was a little 54 and kind of got locked in on a spot where it was going to land. And we tried to get a good line from there to the hole and just visualize it going in. And he made it. So, Nico hit a great bunker shot in there. We knew he was going to get to 16. And Nick, when he knows what he has to do in those situations, there's not many that are better, right?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. You've kind of brought up a few things that I was going to ask you a little bit more about, and we can drill down on it a little bit more. I mean, but you guys ended up facing Nico in the playoff. Jaeger, who I like to keep tabs on a lot too, fell off, and I think Spawn too, which another fan favorite, like with Mark Cairns on the bag. That would have been an epic 4-man playoff, but it was you and Nico, and then Nick's family was there, which was really cool. I think it was the first time maybe the whole crew was together for a win. But he gave you a big shout out, at least on social media. I felt like when he was thanking people afterwards, just or maybe it was in an interview, but he was just kind of commenting about you also kind of being calm, cool, collected in the playoff. I guess, what have you tried to bring to the table in those situations as well?
Just calmness and clarity, I guess. Nick's obviously great in those situations, and obviously we've been in that position enough now where, I've come to love it too. And I played for 7 or 8 years, and obviously not at this level, but you almost feel like you're back in playing when you get in those situations, and you're doing not everything but hitting the shots, because he's doing the lion's share of it for sure, obviously. And but you really feel like, you get those competitive juices flowing. And I just try to kind of be calm for him and help him try to make good decisions, clear decisions, and really just lighten the mood between shots, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Nick's obviously great at what he does, and he's had a great career. And it's just, being able to kind of engage and disengage whenever whenever it's time for you to hit the shot, be in it, be ready. And when it's not, golf, the rounds of golf are way too long to be locked in for 4 hours, right? So you
Sure.
kind of have to do your business, and then, think of something stupid kind of between shots to make them laugh and lighten the mood. And then let him have fun and try to make sure he's enjoying it out there. And he's done a great job of that when he's at his best. And, probably when he's not at his best, it's um, more of a challenge, but he has to work a little bit harder to have fun. But it was a great week with the way the week started. Paying tribute to like Grayson Murray early in the week, our past champion there last year. Nick and I were at the ceremony and celebration for him, and then it kind of came full circle at the end of the week with Nick getting his first win with his mom and dad there. They've been at some great events and seen him play some great golf, but that's the first time they've seen him win on the PGA Tour. So I kind of felt it was not irony or I guess symbolic with the way things worked out, and it was a special week all around, right?
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, it is like one of those things. I've been fortunate to be on the bag for some wins on the Corn Ferry Tour, but not on the PGA Tour. But you always look back and things kind of make sense in the end. A lot. It's interesting to hear you talk about Grayson Murray there too. And I was aware of that being significant that week, but I never really was able to follow along with any of the things they did on site. So that's cool to hear that you guys were at that and that he was kind of with everybody and with you guys in that moment too. It was such a tragic thing, and he was such a good guy. Had a good spirit about him. So you guys are very deserving. Nick's a very deserving, first champion, after Grayson. So that was cool to hear. Well, I guess, I first ran into you in Bermuda. I feel like, and I don't remember when this was, maybe 20, 21, 19. I can't quite play. Were you out there with somebody else at the time, or was Nick your first bag out on tour? I can't remember.
Yeah, actually, I think the first recollection of you, Johnny, was I'm pretty sure we caddied together I used to caddy for Michael Gligic. He was the first guy that I caddied for
Okay.
on the PGA Tour or really ever. I played and then I kind of stopped playing and I went down east to Cabot Links didn't know what I wanted to do after I was done playing. And when you don't know what to do, I think you kind of say yes to things that come up and you try to do the best that you can with them and see where they lead you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Cabot and enjoyed it there. And I got a call kind of the start of my second year there from an old mental coach. And he connected me with a player, Cindy Lacrosse, on the LPGA Tour. I did 9 or 10 events for her, thought I was going to run into some visa issues, went back to Cabot. And then my good buddy, Michael Gligic, called me at the end of the year. He was going to second stage. He had a buddy that used to caddy for him out on the Canadian Tour. And when he got into some Corn Ferry and PGA Tour events, and he wasn't going to do it anymore. He's going to take I think he was working at a casino or something. And Glegs wanted me to come out with him. And he played great at second stage. It was my first week with him down in Brooksville, Florida. And then we went to Arizona and he rolled through there. And then 4 weeks into the year, he won in Panama. So Glegs and he kind of got it going early. And we had our ticket to the PGA Tour kind of punched early that year. And anyways, he's another good friend of mine, as Nick is. And it's been cool to work for a couple good buddies. And I remember, I don't know what it was. It might have been our second year on the PGA Tour or our first year. We ended up playing, I think, Springfield, Missouri in an off week. And we didn't get into a couple events. So he's trying to stay sharp and playing there. And I remember you were there caddying for Martin Laird. You were doing a couple events for him. And I think Laird was kind of rehabbing like a little knee injury. And he's trying to get some starts and test it on the Corn Ferry first. And I remember you looped for him there. So we spent a couple days together at the start of that week, I remember. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, old Marty Laird. And Marty, I got to spend a lot of time around Nick when I caddied for Martin for maybe half a year, and it was COVID happened too, and he got injured, like you said. But I remember we got to do a lot of practice rounds with Nick because they had the same coach. And I don't know, does Nick still work with Wiener?
He does, yeah. Mark McCann, also known as Wiener. He's there's there's a lot of people that you say they're one of a kind, and there's few people that like that expression rings true about. And Wiener's one of those guys. He's great old soul. He's always got a joke to tell, and he knows the game, and he was a great player back in the day, and he's become a great coach, or he has been a great coach over the years. And Nick and him have worked together for I don't know how long for sure, but it's got to be 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
So they've
Yeah.
been a great partnership, and I know he's been great for Nick's game, and kind of knows it in and out, and it's been great support for Nick, right?
Yeah. What was when you're a full-time player, like what were you good at? And then as you kind of look back over these years of you now turning to caddying, how do you feel you've gotten better at that craft?
Yeah, I think early on I was probably a good chipper and putter, and could kind of get it up and down from anywhere. I didn't really hit it the best, and then I think as I got older, I started to hit it a little bit better, and I was kind of always a late bloomer. I didn't really play well as a junior until my last couple of years of junior, and then went away to the States and played college golf. And my last couple of years at college, I kind of figured it out, and then as a pro, you kind of you go wherever they'll take you, right? And
Hmm.
wherever you can play, I think I played for 7 or 8 years, and I think near the end of it, the last couple of years, I kind of got tired of chasing the mini tours out of my car in the southern United States, and I started going to Europe, and whatever money I could kind of wrangle from sponsors, or was fortunate enough to get from sponsors, or kind of save on my own. Like, I went to Europe and tried to get on the European tour. So I was over there 4 or 5 times. Had challenge tour status one year after making it to finals in Europe. And I think when I did that, I started to kind of learn more about myself. And in doing so, you put yourself in those environments where maybe you can't speak the language, or you don't know how to get from A to B, and each kind of day, or each week is a new journey, and you learn and you grow, and I think it only helps your game too, to learn and grow. And I wanted to put myself in those situations, and I think doing what I do now, I think I'm better for those situations. And I probably got in my own way a little too much, probably got a little more angry at times and impatient on the course than what I needed to. And being on this side of things, like on the other end of the bag, like you can see when players are kind of at their wits' end, or when they're getting frustrated, and you know, having experienced that before, you realize, like, doesn't really do you much good, right? So, like I said, my job's kind of to try to keep, Nick and enjoying it out there, and in a good mood, and kind of ready and excited to hit the next shot. And, only he can kind of tell you if I've done that or not. I hope I have. And it's been fun, and it's cool to kind of learn from your own experiences, and then try to, help whoever you're working with or for at the time, to kind of not make the same mistakes you did, maybe, or help them in ways that you couldn't help yourself, right?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, man. Especially while you guys are a good partnership too. And n- I've always enjoyed interacting with Canadians like yourself. You guys are funny, a funny bunch. And I guess what do you guys like to talk about out there when you're not talking golf? Is it just about anything, or what's your go to?
We've Nick beat me. I think he beat me in the quarterfinals of the 2007 Canadian Am, and then he won that week. And we've been pretty good buddies since then. We became fast friends, and we traveled together a bit on the Canadian tour. I might have been the drunkest guy at his wedding. I don't know for sure, but so we've got a lot of history together, and a lot of fun moments over the years. It's either kind of reflecting on something from the past, or you know picking a simple song and changing the lyrics to something stupid, or to just just trying to keep it light, and fun, and funny, and trying to keep him present. And like I said, the more he can enjoy it, I think the more he's able to access the tremendous skill and talent that he's
Sure.
got, right?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the challenge tour earlier, and I have to ask you, like, I mean, that just sounds fascinating. What's your wildest memory from the challenge tour?
Oh man. You know what? I only played like 5 events. I made it to finals, and I had conditional status. And I remember being down here in Orlando, Florida for the winter. And I got a call in March. I didn't think I was going to get into the first few events. So my game wasn't I wasn't ready to play, right? And I got a call, and they were like, you're in the first event, or no, you're the third alternate for Kenya next week. Like, are you going to travel? And I was like, I don't know. Am I going to travel? Right. So I thought about it, and I didn't end up going. I wasn't ready. And then that's kind of how the next one came up too. I think I was traveling kind of back home to Canada, and I got a call, and it's like a Tuesday morning, and they're like, you're in the next event in Denmark. Are you going to travel? Right. And, and this is Tuesday morning. So I got the first flight out on Wednesday, and I get there with enough time to like run the golf course before dark. And then the
Right.
next morning I lose like 4 balls in the first 5 holes. And you're on like the 6 tee looking in the bottom of your golf bag, like there's a hole in there or something, right? And I think I made the cut somehow, and probably finished close to last after making the cut. But it was kind of an adventure like that. I didn't know what to expect. I had not very good status, and I think the next event was in Austria. I was third alternate on like the Sunday night, and same thing. Are you going to travel? And you go to Sweden for the night, Malmo, Sweden, have a couple pints, and you get ready to go the next morning, and you fly to Salzburg, you take a bus to wherever, and you get on the train, and by the time you're in the town, like you're in the tournament. So it was kind of, every week was kind of a journey like that. In hindsight, it would have been good probably to, find a home base in Spain, and be ready for it. But, I didn't really know anybody who'd played over there before, and I was looking for an adventure, and that's what I found.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to gloss over your guys' Phoenix Open win last year. Super Bowl Sunday, that's pretty sick. But I gotta ask you about the Canadian Open win from a couple years ago. Makes a bomb in a playoff to beat Fleetwood. I mean, this is like a logo changing moment. I think with Trudeau going out of office, like maybe there's some talk about Nick Taylor and you getting on some currency. I don't know, but like he's the first Canadian to win the Open since '54, which is crazy. I guess, what do you remember most about that moment in the aftermath? And I know Hadwin kind of played a part in it, in the viralness of it, but just for you guys in that moment. And then what's the reception been like from Canadians to you? I mean, do you have to pay for beers anymore up there? I mean, do you have any funny stories? Like, this is just had to have been kind of a life-changing thing for you, especially as a Canadian.
Yeah, it sure was. I don't spend enough time up there living in Orlando now. And, you know, I, I, I don't know if I still have to pay for beers. I hope Nick doesn't. Anyways, it was wild. Obviously, all three of his wins have been, pretty crazy, and I'm pretty grateful to be a part of them. It was, having family there that week in Toronto, and it was kind of an hour and a half from where I grew up. The golf course, I think Nick only played about 13 holes that week of the golf course, so he didn't see parts of the front nine, and it's almost ignorance is bliss sometimes. And his game was ready though. Like he played great going into that week, and Wiener and a short game coach, like the three of us kept talking, and I kept telling those guys, I know he's going to pop one off sometime. You never know when, but you can kind of tell that he's trending that way. And, the week got off to a shaky start, right? We were 1 or 2 over through 9, and finished the first round in 120th place. And I think probably between mostly his wife and myself, but Andy deserves a lot of the credit for that. Kind of giving him a little talking to after the first round, and getting his head back into a good space. He went out and played lights out the next 3 days, and it was pretty special for it to go our way at the end, and for it started to rain a little bit there when the playoffs started, and we're you know lucky that it didn't pour, because everyone was able to stay around, and to kind of create a wild moment there at the end. Tommy's a great competitor. We played with him the first 2 days, and it was fun to kind of circle back, and to play him at the end there. And Nick, I think Nick pulled a lot of. He pulled on a lot of the Phoenix Open from the year before. He didn't win, but finished second to Scotty, and played with Scotty and Rom the last day. And that was a big step that, I think he's always realized that he can play with, the top players, but that was kind of evidence that he could there. And, that carried a long way. And I think he obviously leans on that experience, and now the 3 wins every time he gets in those positions. And he's done it enough times that, he knows he belongs there, and he knows that he can do it more. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was doing a little bit of research and I was like, well, I'll have to ask Dave about the President's Cup. And then I looked and I was like, they weren't on the team. And I was like, that just seems crazy. And I know how the points worked out, and there were some really good players on that team. And, not all, Canadians could make the team, blah, 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 Mike Weir. And I know you would never disparage anybody that was on it, but was there any bit of a motivating factor of that coming into this season?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you there for a second. You cut out a little bit, but yeah, I've had that a few times. Guys kind of asking about the President's Cup, and it was like, dude, we weren't there, right? We didn't make the team, and sometimes I'm surprised, as surprised as they are, right? But it was one of those things where he played great for a year and a half, and played ourselves into the kind of the driver's seat to be on that team. And I'm sure from doing this as long as you have too, caddying and being out there on the top players, that no matter what you do, if you do things kind of looking over your shoulder, or maybe do things to not screw things up, you're gonna screw things up, right? And the last maybe 5 or 6 months, we didn't play our best, and other guys played a little bit better. And unfortunately, not everyone can make those teams. But I still thought we might squeak on there. With the win in Phoenix, and winning in Canada the way we did, the way Nick did, and we're being there for that win, and kind of seeing that how electric the crowd was. I still thought that counted for something, and it would have been great in Montreal to kind of get him on the roster and get him out there first to get the crowd going. But it didn't work out that way. And I think, it was probably one of those coin flip things at the end of the day to the last couple of guys on the team. And we definitely wish we were there, but it didn't work out. And maybe we don't go and win at the Sony a couple weeks ago if we didn't make that team. I'm not sure how motivated Nick has been by that. I know it definitely is a little fuel in his fire. And yeah, so.
I was looking at a list this morning from Chad Mumm, the Netflix producer, and I saw Nick's name on it. So that's getting ready to drop in a month. Are you getting some screen time in that? What can you tell me about Full Swing 3?
I can't tell you much, to be honest. I don't really know. Nick mentioned it to me in Phoenix last year, early in the week, before winning. And, the first person I talked to, I think, was my wife. And I was like, it's something, just venting to her. I was like, this is cool, but it's, with the President's Cup and the Olympics this year, it's almost a distraction I don't think we need, right? And then he won that week, and I was like, hell, he can do whatever he wants, right? If he wants to be on this. And so they were kind of with us, I think, on Sunday, and after the win in Phoenix. Different times in the year at the Players, I think, and at the Masters, and maybe I think they might have been there with Hadwin and Nick in New Orleans when they played together in the team thing. I don't know. I think they might have been at Nick's. Nick has a charity event every fall. There we go. They might have been at that as well. I'm not certain. I know about as much as you or anybody else does, really. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like they got some good footage, so I'm sure there'll be some good stuff there, and you'll make a few appearances. One thing about you, and I don't know how much you like talk about it, but we're both Type-1 diabetics. I remember that about you when we were sitting next to each other at lunch in Bermuda, and we chatted about it a little bit. I guess there might be a few people that listen along that have relatives that are diabetic or whatever, but just out of curiosity, and you explained some things to me that day, I guess, how do you manage good control How old were you when you were diagnosed? And I guess how has it had a positive impact for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I was diagnosed. I was still playing on the mini tours. I was playing in it's actually kind of a crazy story. I was playing on the e-golf tour in the Carolinas I think we were on Hilton Head Island, and I had a friend of mine, Drew Hansel. He was a teammate of mine at Kent State, and he was caddying for me that week. I had felt not very good for 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months, whatever, several months, and kind of had all the symptoms, I guess. I thought I had mono. He caddied for me that week. We went back to his family house in Savannah after, and his dad, Doug Hansel, who was our coach at Kent State's first captain. Doug's won the U.S. Senior Amateur. He's played in a number of U.S. Senior Opens. He's a doctor himself. And his mom, Nancy's a nurse, Drew's mom, and Doug's wife. And we were in their kitchen, and Doug was like, maybe he's got diabetes, and Nancy's like, oh, don't say that, right? And they test me in their kitchen that night, and my number was like 600 or like 580 or something. Like I was 6 times higher than what I should be. And
Sure.
he gave me insulin that night, and it was the first night that I slept through the whole night without having to urinate in like 4 months.
Wow. He gave
And
you insulin that night and you didn't have to go to
yeah,
the ER or anything. What
no,
a
he gave me a
crazy.
shot. And you know what? I was actually supposed to go to Morocco with Nick and his brother a couple weeks later to play the e-golf tournaments over there. This was in 2011, I think. And Doc Hansel said, he's like, no, you're not going over there. He's like, you're going to end up kind of hitting rock bottom, fatigue wise at some point. You're going to end up in a hospital with unsterilized needles, and it could be, you don't want that. And so I went back to Canada, got lined up with an endocrinologist, and a couple of weeks later we came back to the US. And I think Nick and myself and another buddy of ours, we made the 10-hour drive from Orlando to Lake Triomphe to qualify for the first Corn Ferry event of the year that year. And it's been, I think everything in life is what you make of it. And to me, it's been I'm very grateful that it's something that I can manage, and as I'm sure you are. You get to kind of, everything's within moderation, what you eat, and you're always kind of checking your numbers, see where you're at, if you need insulin or if you need some carbs. And after playing in Europe, I came back from Europe when I was still playing, and it was like, how can you help people with diabetes and tie golf to it too? And for 3 years, I kind of ran a fundraiser at my home golf course back in Shelburne, Ontario, Canada. And the proceeds went to helping kids in the community in Ontario that have type 1 diabetes go to camp and be with other kids that had diabetes. So, in the regular classroom setting, they might be the only kid with
Right.
diabetes. When they go to these summer camps, they're with other kids that have diabetes, and they're not different. They can be the same as their friends, right? So we did that for 3 years and raised a bunch of money, and I passed it over to kind of the golf course and my head pro at the golf course. And thankfully he was able to run it for I think another 7 years, and helped a lot of kids kind of with diabetes there. And it's just yeah, I'm just grateful that to be able to kind of live life, and it's a perfect excuse to kind of live life in a healthy manner. And I don't help as much as I did then, but it gives you a reason to kind of try to help others
Yeah.
with the platform of golf that you have too,
That's
so
cool to hear about that fundraiser.
yeah.
Well, I want to get one more, and then I had a little rapid fire for you to get out of here. And I forgot to ask you about the Olympics, which if you have anything about that you want to add, you can. But I guess just kind of looking forward to this upcoming stretch. You guys go over to the Century and get to play in Maui to start the year. Then you go pop a W in Sony, and you were kind of in the mix a little bit last week in the desert. Then you get an off week, which I could see why Nick probably isn't going to play at Torrey, and now you guys might get a chance to go play there in a month if Riviera's off the schedule. But the next 2 weeks, you're going to be at Pebble, where he's won before with Skillet on the bag. Shout out to Skillet. And then you're going to be the defending champions in Phoenix. How much are you looking forward to these next couple of weeks?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's exciting, but you try not to get too far ahead of yourself. You know, obviously Maui's where you want to start every year. Sony's finished 7th the last 2 years, so you never know when a win's coming, but I felt pretty good about his chances kind of winning there someday. It's a perfect golf course for him. Great week last week. You know, it's probably the best he's played after a win in his career the week after. So, you know, it's good to see him try not to have too high expectations, or, you know, he managed himself very well early in the week. Palm Springs can be tough with 3 golf courses, but, you know, he kind of kept the practice light and less is more, and tried to get some rest. And then, you know, yeah, obviously Pebble's been, you know, great to him over the years. Battle and Phil a couple of years ago, skillet on the bag, and getting that win. And then, you know, Phoenix, he's 10 minutes down the road. He lives from TPC Scottsdale and has had 2 great finishes there the last 2 years. So, you know, the schedule, the kind of stars aligned to have a, you know, a great start to the season. And, you know, it's unfortunate about Riv and kind of the devastation and the, you know, what people are dealing with out there. That was kind of a, you know, it was a great golf course kind of for him as well. Like, you don't have to be a bomber, maybe like you do at Torrey. You know, Torrey's kind of it does favor a big hitter, which Nick is not really a big hitter, but in terms of, you know, distance wise, but it doesn't mean that he hasn't had great rounds there in the past and that he can't have, you know, great rounds in a great week, you know, in the future. You know, it's exciting. The schedule's changed a little bit, and it's always great to get off to a good start. And you know, it kind of takes the pressure off the rest of the year. You just kind of show up ready each week and try to be present and try to manage your expectations and just go play golf and have fun doing it, you know.
For sure. All right. So Ryan Armour messaged me back to ask you how your skating has been lately.
I'm sure he could tell you. It's not very good. I saw Armour before Christmas there, Pendy and Gliggs. They've done this. It's the 3rd time we've done this. It's kind of a annual like player caddie skate before Christmas down in West Palm, and you know, Armour should watch what he says, because I haven't seen him on skates yet. But his young lad came and played the last couple of years, and he's a very good hockey player actually. So it was good to see him there, and it's always good to kind of lace him up. It only happens once a year, but you try to stay out of people's way and not get hurt, and enjoy doing it, you know.
Yeah, not get hurt for sure. Who's your hockey team?
I'm a Penguins fan, actually.
Okay.
I grew up being a big Mario Lemieux fan, and then they got Crosby, and they're maybe kind of close to rebuilding now. Crosby's getting close to the end, but he's got a couple good years left, and everyone busts my chops all the time about not really being a Leafs fan. I like to see them do well, but at the same time, I almost like to see them struggle too. It's a little sick, but you know, that's the way it is.
I think there's a kid that played on the UNO at Omaha's hockey team that's on the Penguins.
Oh, is there? That's cool. Eh?
I need to check and see, but all right. What's your favorite tournament to caddy?
Obviously it's nice being in Canada. You know, it's fun to kind of be there with family and see people you haven't really seen in a while. And obviously since Nick's won, I mean, you know, I love going to Pebble. I mean, the first time I went to Pebble, it was pretty cool. You know, obviously being at Augusta last year, we didn't have our best week, but we get to go back there this year and learn from the past, and we'll be ready to go this year. It's pretty special. There's a lot of great stops on tour. You know, we're fortunate to kind of do what we get to do, you know.
Who's your favorite practice round group when you show up on a Tuesday and you're going for 9 holes only maybe, and you get to the tee and you see who's there?
Yeah. We play a lot with the Canadian boys, you know. We play with Connors and Pendy and Hads and Mac and the odd times Svensson. You know, the boys are great. There's a lot of like BC versus Ontario matches, which are fun. Knowing those guys for a lot of years, it's fun to, see them all out there together and to see kind of, it's not a big country, and those guys have done well the last few years, and it's fun to see, and we're always kind of rooting for each other.
Who impresses you the most? You guys have gotten, like you mentioned, playing with Scheffler, and you're getting those premier pairings now. Who impresses you the most when you're paired together of all the players in the world?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great players. There's a lot of guys that, obviously Scotty and Xander, and Rory. There's a guy that's kind of underrated. I feel like sometimes is like, Russell Henley's a great player. I enjoy his caddy Andy. He's a great dude, and they had a great year last year. He just kind of does everything good and should probably win more than what he does.
Sure.
But there's a lot of great players, and um, yeah, it's fun to to get those groups and to be out there with any of these guys. They're all great players, but the guys that are kind of top in the world rankings, like they're pretty exceptional at what they do, right?
You mentioned Andy Sanders. My first summer caddying after I graduated from college was '04, and I caddied a week for Andy in Wisconsin on, I don't know what the tour was called then, but it was the Corn Ferry Tour, and he was a phenomenal putter. He used to just
Oh, was he?
Oh yeah, he used to just reach that putter out 5 feet from the hole, and the thing would just go in every time.
Love that.
Andy's great. All right, last question. I ask every guest this. Speaking of me caddying, let's say I'm caddying for you at the Masters, and you got a one-shot lead going in the final round, and I went out ice skating with Armour the night before and broke my ankle. I can't go on Sunday, so you can call anyone in the world to caddy the final round at Augusta for you. Who are you going to ring?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Probably I probably try to get a Sunday bag and get my old man on the bag. My dad to be out there. My mom and dad got to go last year, and Nick had an extra ticket for them to be there a couple days, and my wife sacrificed her ticket the one day to kind of so that they could get there together, and it was pretty special. For kind of everything they've done for me over the years. And growing up and getting me into the game, like it'd be cool, right?
Nice. I love it. Hey, Dave, it was great catching up with you. Love following you. Love following Nick. Give Nick a fist bump for that win. And, we'll be following around all year long. Hope to see you out there at some point this year, but it was good catching up with you.
Yeah, it's always great to see you. Be good to see you out there. And thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Cheers.
Thanks, John.